Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Ridge Community Church podcast. My name is John. I'm one of the pastors on staff at the Ridge, and our vision is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. So as a piece of that, our goal each week is to bring you something that's hopeful and helpful. So subscribe to this podcast to make sure you don't miss any hopeful and helpful conversations. Hey everybody, and welcome to the At the Movies after show for the final week of At the Movies. We just got done watching Jesus Revolution, which our lead pastor Mark spoke through and had some really amazing takeaways. Mark is on vacation, but I think he would agree that we've got a better guest lineup today. We've got Mariha, our communications director, and Evan, our creative arts pastor. Is that right? Is that the right title?
I'm not as artistic as some may assume, just creative pastor.
Okay. Creative pastor. So is that like arts and crafts? No, it's not art.
Well, I'm working on the art side of things. I have watercolors, just off screen, experimenting with some things, but creative, mainly in the sense of doing things people don't expect and being weirded out by it. So,
yeah. And if this is your first time listening to anything from the Ridge, we don't actually try to make it weird. So you've really sold us. You really sold it there, Evan. Thank you for that.
I'm being genuine. I'm being myself. You can't blame me for being fake. So
you just made Mariah's job like 10 times harder. So, which I do every week. So thanks for helping it out.
This is Evan's last podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did not pass the audition.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, why don't we actually talk about some of this stuff? Let's start with maybe specifically Jesus Revolution, and then we can actually dive into maybe just At the Movies as a whole, since we're at the last week. Either one of you, you're watching Jesus Revolution. I know Mark took the whole staff to go see it. When you first saw it, what was your reaction?
Were you on staff then, Evan?
No, I was not.
So it's my reaction.
Okay, yes. Called out immediately.
Yeah. So Mark, he just said, "Hey, I want to take everybody to Jesus Revolution," and it was exciting because it was like, "Hey, we get to not be at work for a little bit," and we had all I had heard about the movie, title mainly, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be one of those stereotypical Christian-based movies that are often terrible acting. But so we go, and all of us were everybody was just silent and soaking it in, because I really feel like a lot of the philosophies and the ways that the church in Jesus Revolution was challenging the status quo is so much of what our heartbeat is for people that are far from God here at the Ridge and just in our church cohort in general. The things that they were saying as far as having an open door, going across the aisle, identifying who we might be having the door closed to, those are all very challenging conversations that really challenge us as a staff to look within and look at our hearts. I really feel like seeing that movie last year catapulted our vision and alignment as a staff, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, again, I'm furthering that I should no longer be invited to be on these podcast conversations. Because even to this day, I have yet to see the full movie. So the watching the clips in the service was the first exposure I had ever had to the movie. And I, like Mariah, have been a pretty strong critic of the Christian filmmaking business over the last few decades. I'm my lame flag goes way up, and I'm just like, this is super lame. The stories are not true. They are not examples of what living a life following Jesus actually looks like and feels like. It's like all these feel good movies. And so it's kind of me going into this thinking I'm not prepared for, us putting this up on a pedestal to say we should really watch this. There's good stuff here. I'll tell you the one thing in the clips, because I've still not seen the full movie. Forgive me. That I just like that made me like pause and think, okay, I need to watch this. There's definitely something to this. Which a little bit of a giveaway here in the storyline, they were talking about, these people, some of them they're not wearing shoes and they're gonna mess up our brand new carpet. Um, and the next clip being the pastor washing people's feet as they came in, was like it grabbed my attention immediately. And it was one of those things that was like, we know like washing feet, there's a big biblical precedent for that as we read in the New Testament. And Jesus himself washed the disciples' feet, but it's not like a modern day thing. Like when we do it today, it's usually like symbolic.
Sure.
Um, but in that moment, it was symbolic while also being like, oh, we don't want to mess up the carpet. I'll wash people's feet. And it just like it was such an amazing way to tell that story that really grabbed my attention as I watched it.
Yeah, I think similarly, and it's right after that scene, but it's that whole section of time, right, where um there's this church that has people that are having a hard time, that people that aren't exactly like them are being a part of it. And they have this envisionment for what it means to go to church and what you need to be like, how you need to act, how you need to dress. And the fact that there's this pastor, these followers of Jesus that are like, hey, maybe there's a little bit something more that we need to be looking at. And then there's this massive pushback that says, no, you can't mess with this. Is our church. We don't want these people here because they're weird, they're different, they're whatever. Is really, I think, at least I think should be a humbling thing for anybody who follows Jesus to say, like, if I go to church, what's my expectation for other people who follow Jesus? What are they supposed to be like? And how do I need to consistently put those things aside and say, that's not what following Jesus is about.
Mhm.
And frankly, if you're somebody who's listening to this and that's been your experience, where you came to a church and you didn't feel welcome, and you walked into a space and you felt like people looked down upon you because of how you dressed or how you um, just who you were, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that that was your experience. And I want to let you know that that's not representative of what Jesus has asked us to do and commanded us to do. And so my hope is that you'll give another place a try. You'll give some more individuals that follow Jesus a try, because that's not representative. And so yeah, that was a humbling thing for me, because it's like, okay, well, what small ways do I do that? Um, just innately, you know. Uh, and I hope that would be something that people would take away. People who follow Jesus that watched that were a little bit captivated by it and like, okay, now this isn't for a select group of people. This is much bigger than that.
Yeah. I think we have to like try our best to fend off this idea of the church being like a country club.
Mm.
And I want to throw out there that I think it is fine and good to have community that you want to be around. And like people that you love dearly, you love being around them, and like that is what the church was created for. But where it takes that dark turn is when it turns into like exclusivity, to where you'll even say like, oh yeah, we have an open door, but when someone steps in that open door, it feels like, wow, I do not feel welcome here. Like no one's engaging with me. I've left to like figure out things on my own. So just that idea of the church, if we say that it's going to be an open door and we want to be messy, we want anyone in whatever situation they're in to feel welcome coming into our church. Like we cannot say, when I go to church, these are my people. and this is who I'm going to be around, and this is who I'm going to talk with. Maybe it's good for us to put on a mindset when we're at church. We're like still living out, how can I be an example to others, not just the people that I want to be around, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like when I was watching that movie, it's so simple. It's so easy to quickly go, I'm not the people that were trying to keep the church exactly how it was. I'm not one of the elders. He walks out when the pastor was like, hey, this is a church for everybody. And if you don't like it, there's a door in and there's a door out. And I think so many of us are so quick to say, oh, I would have walked across the aisle. And it's, would you? Right? That's the question. And that's where that heart change comes in. Because immediately I was like, yeah, I would have walked across the aisle and been brave and sat next to, the outcasts, which were the Jesus freaks or the hippies of this movie. But like, you have to really think about that. It's a different time now. And it's like, would you cross the aisle or would you walk out the door? And if you walked out the door, there's also the grace of God with heart change of you can come back in too. So I think there's also hope in that perspective as well.
Yeah. Well, and we're in such a unique situation here at the Ridge. Our Greenfield location specifically is in a very like urban, setting. We have a Walmart right next to us. As its benefits, I can easily get snacks.
Some would say that's a danger.
Yeah, there is a danger for that. But I mean, we consistently have people that are battling homelessness coming into our services. Are we drawn to people that might be hard to talk with? Or are we kind of like saying somebody else will do that? Like, so that's somebody else's job. That's Tyler's job. He's the campus pastor. He'll do it.
Yeah, and I think that's to anybody that's different, right?
Yeah.
To anybody that's in a different situation to you, and maybe that's like, okay, somebody who sits on a different end of the political spectrum from you, maybe that's somebody who looks different. Like, who is that person for you, for me, for all of us? That's maybe just harder to connect with, that we find ourselves trying to avoid for whatever reason. Are we making space for them to feel welcome and feel like, nope, God loves them and myself equally? What am I doing to make sure that they feel that way?
Yeah.
Well, hey, why don't we pull back a little bit? There's probably a lot more we can talk about on just Jesus Revelation. We didn't even get into like the whole concept of like desperation and these people that are looking for anything. And that's a big part of, but go watch the movie, go watch Jesus Revolution. And I think it does a great job of really telling the story. At the movies as a whole, I'm curious, and specifically Mariah, and I've heard lots of Evan's thoughts. So get out of here, Evan. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah. Interesting. And yeah. Mariah, you got a chance to kind of film behind the scenes. I'm curious as to like your experience, if there was anything holistically as we kind of move out of the At the Movies season, you'll kind of take away.
Yeah, I mean, this was my second year being a part of At the Movies. It's always a really cool experience because when you're a part of the creative process, you get to see the messages that the teaching pastors put together before you see it. And a lot of times, like, I hadn't personally seen probably half the movies that were out, so I watched them after. But it's really cool seeing the writing process from the teaching pastors, their notes, all the time that they put into it. And then it's a little bit of a disconnect because when you're sitting there watching it get filmed, right, the message piece of it, it's like, how does this all fit in? And then when you kind of get to see the magic unfold and watch how the clips get pulled in and the B-roll, and then you get to really, I spend a lot of time during At the Movies getting a feel for the room, seeing how people respond and react to things. So that's also a really cool part of being able to be behind the scenes. Part of my role as a communications director is also helping the teaching pastors, not helping because you guys know what you're doing, but just kind of guiding to make sure that what they really want to say is coming out, is being received in the way that their goal was. So it's really cool just to kind of see how all that unfolds. Especially like even like finding locations, which is always really hard because you have to, one of the things we like about doing at the movies is finding local places that represent the movie. And that's very challenging. Shout out to Evan and his team. But it is challenging trying to find a local representation for a movie. So I think the whole process is just, it's really cool. And I love seeing how it comes together. And I think the special part about ending this series with Jesus Revolution was the life change that happened inside of the building.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So spoiler alert, if you weren't at either of our locations during At the Movies, we had scheduled baptisms, and then in light of the movie Jesus Revolution, we opened it up to spontaneous. So we all knew that was happening on staff, and we spent a lot of time praying about it. But yeah, we had 42 people make the decision to be baptized on the spot. It was the most amazing experience. You felt the presence of God in the room. Personal story for me is that my best friend got baptized, and then her daughter got baptized, and her daughter was my flower girl, and I got to baptize both of them. This is my second time ever baptizing anybody, and when I tell you, when you have somebody that you love so much and that you pray for all of the time, and you've gone through so many seasons together, both, her and I separately and together have gone through so much together, to witness a life-changing decision of following Jesus, and just to see her, she came up to me and was just bawling. And she said, I want to get baptized. And I just had goosebumps. It was such a God moment. And that happened 42 times at both campuses, at both locations. We went overtime in service, which doesn't matter, right? It was the coolest thing ever. People came together. There was music, there were tears, there were kids getting baptized, people that have been coming to church for 12 years and have never been baptized were getting baptized. And it's those sacred moments that always remind us why we spend so much time making sure that God's message of hope is shared. And like, I can't stop thinking about the baptisms, because I also was a photographer for baptisms. And so my friend gets baptized, I'm setting my camera down, I'm running up and I'm dunking her. And it was something very special that happened in the room that time.
Well, I don't know how we follow that up with it.
Sorry.
No, that's just so good, Mariah. I think that's just like, that's the captivating message, and I hope that's the lasting impression people have, at the movies, because it is an opportunity to do things creatively, right, Evan? Where we can use story, kind of the modern version of just telling a story from anywhere, movies, to really help people understand exactly how much hope comes from Jesus, and to see like that come to fruition in your friend's life, where her life's changed, and she's experiencing the hope of Jesus, and that's just so powerful and so cool. So thanks for, I know both of you put in a tremendous amount of work to make At the Movies happen. And so thank you to both of you. From all the people, the rich, I'm gonna send a thank you for all of them. And thanks for doing these after shows to help us understand and apply a little bit more of the messages. So thank you both.
Absolutely.
You bet. Our arts team really killed it, and the teachers did a great job kind of putting together how can you tell a biblical story through some of these movies. Even Tommy Boy. Even
Tommy Boy.
Even Tommy Boy.
I will say this was 2 years ago was the first time, right, that I experienced helping like to produce at the movies. But that was my first time experiencing it at a church, right? Weirdest concept. I did not buy into. I thought, I'm like, what is this? Like gimmicky, weird situation. And it's so amazing how God can work through the teaching pastors and movies and life change. And it affects new people walking in the door. It affects people that have been here forever. And yeah, I just giving different things a chance is so vital, and finding different ways to reach people that don't know Jesus. Like, I just think it's so cool that we take the risk on At the Movies to just open our doors and welcome everybody in.
Love that. Well, thank you both for coming to the At the Movies After Show. Thank you all for listening and watching. And we hope that you enjoyed this year's At the Movies.